everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And I am so excited because today's guest has a wealth of knowledge, and she is such a sweet and kind-hearted person. And I'm excited to introduce her to you. Her name is Dr. Ynge Ljung. Let's bring her on. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. This is really exciting.
I'm excited to have you here. As I was saying to you before we started, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while now because after researching you, I'm just so impressed with the wealth of knowledge and also the life that you've lived. It's totally unusual from other people. So I hope we get a chance to touch on that. But I would love to ask you to share a little bit about yourself and your own wellness journey to start.
Okay, I think I have lived a long life, so I think I have to start when I came to the United States. I came from Venezuela, where I was an artist and an artisan. And because of a romance that did not work out, it ended up being very expensive. I ended up with no money, no work permit, and thinking about going into the ocean and become shark food.
Ooh.
But I didn't do that. So I got a job under the table to start with, and got a roommate whom I later married so I could get my papers.
I can relate.
And we were going to, he was an artist, and we were going to he had a job as doing a mural in Miami. And we were going to do that. And then I tripped and broke my wrist in 5 places, I think. So I had a lot of screws hanging out of my arm and no artwork for me for a while. Mm-hmm. And I went for acupuncture for healing of my arm. And then I said, well, because I had a school too. So I said, okay, I think I was pushed. And signed up for school for acupuncture. So it was a 3-year course. And loved it. In the beginning, I didn't understand squat, but all of a sudden it just turned around, and I thought it was very logical. Then I graduated in 95, and it was probably only a year after, I was changing sheet on the bed for my meditation, turned around, and my back just went up.
Oh, wow.
And this was, well, maybe like a Kundalini rising, but not in a good way. So this back pain didn't finish. It didn't disappear. I went for acupuncture, chiropractic, massage, everything. But the pain just went up my back, up all the way up to the neck. And I could hardly move. I could hardly walk. I couldn't sit on a chair. So I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia.
Oh, wow.
So I just treated a couple of people a day so I could afford to pay my rent and go for chiropractic for treatment for myself. Mm-hmm. And I did that for probably a couple of years. And that was at the same time when I found that most people, they had fabulous results with acupuncture, but one or another, they did not, and like myself. And I started to on a quest, and I found the naturopathic allergy elimination technique, and started to treat allergies with NAET. So I started to treat myself too, of course. Mm-hmm. And even though I didn't think I had any allergies, looking back now, what I know, the signs were there when I was a little girl. So treating my allergies and treating my emotions that all my life, I had been married for 25 years, 3 kids, and everything I went through in that, I never handled it. I just worked and worked and worked and pushed everything down. No, that's nothing. No, I'm fine. Like so many of us do.
Yes.
So until I started to take care of myself and my inner self, and do the allergies, treating the allergies, and that's when I started to heal. So it took me altogether, I think I still had some sequela after in 2001, but after that, like today, I have, of course, no, it's a long time ago, but I have no sign of fibromyalgia whatsoever, and I'm not planning on it.
Thank goodness. It sounds like you've been through a lot. So I'm curious, did your back pain go away as well when you started treating the allergies, or?
Yeah, so that whole thing, that slowly, because it started with the back, and then the pain was in the whole body, everywhere. So I could only sleep on my back, and I had a big thing under my knees. I could not turn my head. That's how I slept, on the floor. I couldn't even sleep in bed.
Oh my gosh, that sounds very uncomfortable.
It was, but that's behind me. So there is hope for everybody.
Exactly. So what are some signs of allergies?
It can be, of course, there are the obvious things with rashes or eczema or that stuff. It can be just feeling bad after eating and not knowing why. And I have met one person in my 23 years, I think it is, I've treated allergies, that did not have any allergies. He was from the islands, grew up in the boonies, no vaccinations, no pesticides.
Wow.
They ate their own chicken and their own piglets, and everything was grown. That was the only person.
That's amazing.
Because I think that everybody has, well, maybe not allergies, but there is a sensitivity to a lot of the basic food. So I put together, for example, my allergy kit. The basic kit is 7 vials plus a stress vial. And for example, the first vial contains the energy from egg, chicken, milk, vitamin C, and parasites. And the reason is that because some vegans, they say, oh, I don't eat chicken or eggs. Well, we came from an egg.
I love that.
So that's the reason.
So even if you don't eat things like chicken or egg or dairy, you can still test positive for that allergy? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do muscle testing, of course.
That's fascinating. I know a lot of people, especially me, I work in nutrition, but I don't have nearly the wealth of knowledge that you do. However, I discovered that I had a gluten sensitivity. So I appreciate the difference, the nuance that you mentioned, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm not allergic, but that doesn't mean that it's good for you.
No, I mean, wheat is a big, big problem. And today, everybody, so to speak, is gluten intolerant or gluten allergic, but I think, first of all, they are allergic to the toxins. Since wheat is sprayed with glyphosate, with Roundup, 2 to 3 days before they harvest it, so that the leaves fall off. Well, what does the toxins go? They go straight up to the kernels, and that's what we consume. So it's very toxic. Wheat by itself is hard to digest. And then it has, in the gluten, it has a couple of proteins. One acts as an opiate, so it's addictive. And then the other is that it makes holes in the intestinal lining. And then undigested food comes out in the bloodstream, and that is partially why we get all these allergies, because all of a sudden people are allergic to everything. I'm sure you have seen that. I can't eat anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people don't realize how thin that wall is, that membrane. It's like as thin as a cell. I mean, it's so tiny. It's not exactly hard to permeate.
And another thing, it doesn't have really to do with that, but I think especially after staying inside for a year and then winter, everybody in this country is, practically everybody, is the vitamin D deficient, which it's not only that it helps the immune system, it also helps to heal the gut, the lining of the gut. It's a hormone. It's not really a vitamin, as you know, but it's so important. And I get so frustrated. I try to tell people to take vitamin D. And now they have the shot, so they don't think they have to do it.
You know, and a shot's not the same thing as when you get it naturally. I would love for you to expand on that a little bit more, because people, especially in this country, they just want to pop a pill. They just want to take a shot for that instant fix instead of maybe getting it from their food, for example.
Yes. No, it's like with measles and all these childhood illnesses that I had everything, and my kids had everything. In Sweden, since I'm Swedish originally, they were later with all these vaccinations, and also in the beginning, but that was long after my kids were born. They would not buy the vaccines from the United States because they had too much mercury in them. So they produced specific vaccines for, I don't know if it was only Sweden or if Norway and Denmark were also in on it. But they had a lower grade of mercury of the whatever it's called otherwise.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating, because I know too in the United States with food, a lot of the standards for what we accept in this country are not allowed in other countries. It is considered poisonous and dangerous, and yet they push it on us and we consume it because we think it's safe.
Yeah, the glyphosate is one of the things. I personally, I cannot eat American wheat. It hits my hips, so I can hardly walk.
Oh, wow.
And it took me a long time before I realized I could not sleep on my sides for years.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it was okay, and sometimes it was not, because I'm not really a bread or wheat eater normally. But then I went to the same restaurant three times in the same week because we were traveling, and the last time I could hardly get up from the table, and that's when I realized it was the bread, because they had fabulous bread that they flattened and toasted and.
No, I love that. I love that you were able to make the correlation, because I know a lot of people don't really pay attention to their body. They don't ever make the connection between what they're eating and maybe their hips, for, like with you, because it doesn't necessarily make sense in our mind, but I mean, everything's connected. So,
and especially if you eat the same food, more or less the same foods all the time, and people forget how it feels to feel good.
Exactly.
They are so used to feel a certain way, and then they feel worse. But okay, it's getting old.
Yeah, I was actually just talking about that the other day, about how sometimes you don't realize how heavy your backpack is until you set it down. So you don't realize it because you're so used to not feeling your best that it feels normal, and you don't have a higher expectation for yourself. That's amazing. So if somebody is allergic to certain types of food, what kind of, I don't know what I was going to ask, something along the lines of.
Well, I have, since I say everybody is more or less, they're sensitive to what I have in the basic vials.
That's what, yes.
And of course, then there are other foods too. But they have, so I told you what was in the first vial. The second vial is sugar, because, okay, so we come from an egg. When we're born, we get milk. When we start to eat, we eat vitamin C. And then we're warm-blooded animals, so we all have parasites. And then treatment number 2 is with vitamin B and sugar. And that is also a specific reason why that is together, because, well, of course, we need vitamin B for our nerves, but also with addictions, for example. Alcoholism, for example, is an allergy to vitamin B, sugar, and alcohol.
Can you develop an allergy over time? Or
Yeah.
is it always there and then you just reach that point?
Well, it could be that too, but it can also be intolerance. You can only fill the barrel to a certain point. So there are different things. Of course, there are what's allergies and what the medical say it's allergies with IgG and IgE and all that stuff. I call everything allergies. It's simpler, but of course they are different. And there is intolerance and sensitivity. So intolerance, that is, I think, when people have too much of something.
Mm-hmm.
And sensitivities, I think, has to do with enzymes. So they don't have enough enzymes. So they can treat a little differently. But still, it helps with the kit.
Yeah. So you mentioned sugar a couple of times. I know that it inflames people's bodies, but it's also an allergy.
Well, I count this as an allergy. What happens, of course, when you have sugar cravings and it becomes an addiction, and that in turn causes candida.
Yep.
Overgrowth of candida albicans bacteria. I mean, candida is good to a certain point, but when it's overgrown, it's not good. And it leads to so many other things, digestive problems, depression, for example, and weight problems, a lot.
Yeah.
But I just spoke to one woman yesterday. She said, I don't know what to do. I do not know what to do. My cravings for sugar is so bad. Well, she's probably full of bacteria.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the overgrowth of candida. And when you treat with the allergy, the cravings go away, even though sometimes, especially if you're that allergic to or sensitive or crave sugar that much, you probably have to treat it several times.
So if somebody has an allergy or a sensitivity, low tolerance to sugar, can they still eat things like fruit?
Well, they should be careful.
Okay.
And what I really recommend everybody, and of course, nobody wants to prick their finger. Somebody said yesterday there is something else, you don't have to prick your finger. But to check what gets your blood sugar up. I took my own blood sugar, and I can tell about my own journey with blood sugar. I'm studying endocrinology, and that's why I started to get a blood sugar, glucose meter to check. And to my surprise, my blood sugar was elevated.
Wow.
I'm about 5'10". I weigh 131 pounds. I don't like sugar. I never liked sugar. I never had cravings for sugar. So, but I had, about a year and a half ago, I had an operation on my whole head. They cleansed all my sinuses in my head. It was an operation that lasted over 6 hours. So when you have a head trauma, and I consider hammering in my head for 6.5 hours, that is definitely a trauma. But every head injury affects your digestive system, and very often the sugar. So you can be sugar intolerant, the blood sugar is affected.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but I never even thought about it like that. Of course it would. Of course it would change, because we're all connected. I mean, everything affects everything else. It's not like there's one part of your body that doesn't, affect something else.
That is direct communication with the digestive system. I mean, it's duh.
Exactly. Duh. No, I love that. But what about somebody? So you mentioned that if you take care of the candida, then the sugar cravings go away.
Yes. So, and to help with the cravings, doing the treating for the sugar, with the allergy, that helps with the cravings.
Awesome.
So, because that is, I can understand, even though I never had sugar cravings myself, but I can understand that people cannot stop eating. It has become an addiction.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I mean, every time they try to stop eating sugar, those bacteria are sitting down there. Feed me, we can't reproduce, we're dying. So they
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's so true. And so I had a guest on a while ago, and she mentioned, and I'm curious what your thoughts are about this, to sprinkle a little L-glutamine on the tongue for sugar cravings.
Maybe. I have never tried that. I've never heard that before. What I recommend is just take a drop of stevia on your tongue.
There you go.
It's so sweet. That
it is very sweet.
Yeah, very, very sweet. Or you can use monk fruit too, but I have recommended that to patients, and it really helped them.
That's a really good idea. I'm going to actually recommend that to one of my patients as well. So, but here's a question about things like monk fruit and stevia. Can you overdo those things as well?
Fruit?
No, the monk fruit and the stevia.
I don't know, but I'm sure you can.
I'm sure you can.
Too much of anything.
Exactly. Too much of anything is never good.
Too much sex too.
I wouldn't know.
Not anymore, but.
But so what kind of foods do you think that most people lack that they should incorporate? I mean, obviously there's a lack of vegetables and things like that, but are there certain kinds or types, or, you know, in the United States, it's broken down into starches and all these other crazy different things. I'm like, it's food, but what do you think?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the most important thing is that they buy organic.
Yes. Okay.
Because the glyphosate, it's not only toxic, it inhibits I never know if I pronounce it right, the shikimate pathway, which is a pathway where enzymes and bacteria travel to go into the intestines to produce the right bacteria to be able to digest the food. And that is inhibited.
Interesting.
And that is, I think, why so many people have apart from leaky gut, I think that has a lot to do with what's happening.
So I actually have a personal question to ask, a personal question about me. So when I lived in Italy, and I lived there for about a year, I went there at probably one of my most heavy times, and I didn't eat technically healthy at all. I ate pasta, I ate bread, I ate all of that. And I mean, of course, I ate vegetables and all the good things for me too. But I lost so much weight. And my philosophy was that, because my walking was about the same, because I moved from New York City. So my philosophy was that it had something to do with the preservatives as well as the toxins that were in the food. What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. I mean, in Sweden and in Israel, I can eat bread, for example. And in Sweden, some, because they import here from US some weeks. So I always must adjust myself first. And luckily, I'm not a big person on bread. So, but even with pasta, even though I'm very careful, but I can have Italian pasta, even though I maybe have it once every 3 months or so.
So I know that with marketing, there's so much marketing on food in the United States, and now it's gluten-free this and gluten-free that.
And it's all processed.
Exactly. All right. That's what I was hoping you were going to mention, because it doesn't make it healthy just because it's gluten-free.
No. I mean, orange juice is gluten-free too. It's wrong that it's gluten-free. And the orange juice, by the way, is not the best thing for you either, because the sugar goes directly out in the bloodstream. And it definitely gets the blood sugar up.
Oh,
I measured myself when I had an orange, and it went up to 78.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
And that was eating the orange.
Well, I'm afraid to prick my finger, not because of the actual doing the damage, but because I don't want to find out that I can't eat oranges anymore.
No, but what I mean is just to just have an idea or know certain foods, don't overdo them.
Gotcha.
And with orange juice, it's very easy to overdo because even a small glass, how many oranges does it have?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
it's a fast release. It's not with, if, at least when you eat the orange, you know,
Yeah,
it's lower release of the sugar.
exactly. There's fiber. Amazing. All right. So we do have to go to commercial break. We'll be right back. Okay.
Okay.
Isn't she amazing? I don't even want to go to commercial break. I want to keep talking. But for those of you who are watching us live, thank you so much. You are so appreciated. But as I mentioned, we do have to go to commercial. So we'll be right back after these messages.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Now, you can vibrationally align your aura. You can gain a larger and spiritual perspective on life, relationships, God, people, wellness, and money. You can also have moments of meditation and reflection any time of the day. And reading the thrilling, adventurous, and mystical story of Shiga will just add more faith to your daily experience of the mystery of the universe. As human beings, we are meant to thrive in an environment where true love is shared, where we are welcome just as we are, a space we connect with others with the single purpose to find God as love within, a place we learn to raise our consciousness and vibration for happiness, wellness, and wealth creation. Transformative, an online spiritual gathering for everyone. This invitation is sent to you by www.livingfaithschool.org.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's just bring our guests right back on so we can continue the conversation. Welcome back. Oh, okay. So first of all, I want people to be able to find you. What can people find at this website right here?
That's not the website. That is if they want to contact me, that's
the best way to contact you. And what is
the website is theallergykit.com.
Perfect. So this is the best way to reach you, though.
Yes, and if they want a consultation, they can just leave me a message, and I will send them a schedule.
Perfect. I love that. I love that so much. So, do you have anything coming up that you'd like to share? Like a group something or other, or that teaching, or do you have a blog or anything like that?
Well, on the website, I am working on it. I just got up a new website. It was launched about 5 or maybe 6 weeks ago. So there's still so much to, how it is with a new site. There are so many kinks and things.
Of course. Of course there is. It's never easy. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, who said it would be easy? Yeah.
So what would a consultation look like?
I will give them half an hour, and also I will give your viewers a special thing if when they schedule consultation with me. Mm-hmm. I will also give them a body code session.
What is that?
The body code is a system that was invented. It's a patented system invented by Dr. Brad Nelson, a chiropractor now retired, who has been working on this for probably 30 years. Mm. Of course, in the beginning, it was all with a lot of pictures and questions and stuff. And so what I do, I connect with the client and become their surrogate. So I muscle test myself, but I muscle test them. Okay. And then I ask questions, and what I'm looking for is trapped emotions at different ages and different organs or body parts, or can be anywhere, glands. And it's very, very. I love this system, and I also often see what kind of organs are. The digestive system comes up all the time, and often with different ages that were affected. Mm. And sometimes when they're very young. And it's like maybe woo-woo for some people, but and in the beginning, sometimes I said that this is too crazy. These combinations are. I had treated one girl, for example, an autistic child, about 4 years old. And the first thing that came up was her right arm at birth. And I kind of said, what? You start to think when you get this crazy too much, but slightly damaged. So things like that. So I don't question it anymore. No,
I'm glad you don't. You just go with the flow and let it come. Exactly. That's amazing. Yeah. That is absolutely amazing. I've heard of muscle testing before, but I've never heard exactly of being able to tell that. So something that you mentioned about trapped emotions in the body, I know that is a huge issue with a lot of people, myself included. How does that, as far as like symptoms or things, how can that show up in the body?
Well, some people are sick. Some people are sick. And a lot of people are depressed, especially today. And, depression, it really comes from the intestines, from the digestive system. It's not from the head. Yeah. So it's like a vicious cycle that they have maybe candida, maybe leaky gut, any of these things. And then often something happened when they were kids. Mm-hmm. Or older, what often comes up is around 17, 18, heartbreak, heartache. And that was so common. And we had our boyfriends and broke up, and that was very hard at that time.
Yeah. It was life-shattering.
At that time it was.
It was, yeah.
And the thing is that when we get that scratch, that wound, then later on in life something similar happens, and we just scratch more, and the wounds get deeper. But sometimes we don't understand why we react in a certain way, because it wasn't that bad, right? but it's touching that deep wound again and again. So by balancing that out and eliminating that emotion in that place, then it makes people, almost everybody feels better afterwards. Some people feel a big difference. Other people maybe not feel anything until a couple of days later. But I treated one person today and she said, well, I feel lighter, I feel happier. So it's a great treatment.
No, it sounds absolutely amazing. I would love to touch a little bit more on acupuncture too, because I find it fascinating. I know that there's all sorts of different modalities. And is that another way that you can release like those emotions that are trapped?
Yes, very often. I mean, nowadays, since COVID, I don't really treat too many people, even though I still have a practice, but I have an office, but it's filled with allergy kids. But sometimes I normally use treatment I use is 4 needles, and so 2 in the feet and 2 in the hands or the arms. And by putting a needle in a gallbladder point on the foot, the point is called tears overlooking the foot. Translated. And often when they got that needle, they just started to cry. Not, but just crying, just a release.
Wow. So to release the emotions, one of the ways would be through crying. That's kind of how it works. I mean, how does it get out of your body?
I don't know how with the body code, it just disappears. And of course, I mean, it can be the same emotion can come up at different ages and different combinations, but and I can explain it maybe with it was treating a mother whose daughter had been raped by her boyfriend, the mother's boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
And the girl at the time was 15 years old. And the mother, who was a therapist herself, tried to get the girl to go to therapy. She did not want to do it. She did not want to talk about it. And then the mother said, why don't you try what Ynge is doing? Because you don't have to talk about it. It took her a while, and then she said, okay. She had one treatment, and it was as if the whole girl changed.
Wow.
And then two months later, she called me and asked if we could have another session. And that was all. And she was totally rid of anything. And she didn't have to talk about anything. I just said, okay, this and this and this came up and eliminated. And that's it.
Well, I mean, as you know, everything is energy. Absolutely everything is energy. So I always feel like toxic emotions and things, that are negative are just, if they're trapped, they're stagnant. If you can get them moving, then you can make space for something else.
Yes, absolutely.
No, I love that so much. So I know that you don't necessarily, or you can't necessarily explain how it works, but is it like a group of sessions, or is it like a one time, and then like the lady that you just explained that maybe it'll come up again later?
Well, she was only 18, so she probably didn't have that much. She probably has more, but I mean, the older we get, the more shit we have.
More we accumulate.
So I have had patients or clients, of course I do it either over the phone or over Zoom. And somebody that was extremely depressed, I treated her for like 15 times, but she was so much better. And nothing helped. Nothing else helped.
Yeah. So I know that you have certain feelings about Western medicine and its place, and I would love for you, because you and we have the same idea. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your thoughts and why you think what you think.
Well, I wish that the allopathic doctors wouldn't be so narrow-minded.
Yes.
and close-minded, and they poo-poo everything really that is alternate. And then there are others who are open. So I mean, everybody's not the same way.
True.
But just to take an example, muscle testing. If they could learn muscle testing and test their patients for medicines,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of deaths would be avoided.
I never even thought about that. That would be an amazing way to do that.
Yeah, and an easy way.
Mm-hmm.
And they could put together the different medications and see if they go together.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because I mean, there are a lot, and the encyclopedia for that. Well, maybe now it's online, but it can be hard to find what doesn't go together.
Well, I mean, I used to work in pharmacy. So my philosophy was always, I would ask a pharmacist before I would ask a doctor about my medication, because they didn't go to school for medication. So they don't know. So if they could learn some sort of skill, that would make sense, because I can't even tell you how many different times we caught things that were wrong. Oh my goodness, so wrong. That person would have died for sure, or had some sort of severe reaction. And it was, the doctor was just going by what the drug rep would say, for example. Well, the drug rep is trying to sell you something.
They didn't go to school for food either.
Exactly. Yes. No, it's amazing. It's, I mean, I don't want to say that doctors are bad or anything like that. I'm not here to, Western medicine, that it is. But like you said, it just tends to be, and it tends to be so narrow-minded.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know. I think they are brainwashed too, and many of them, they don't even have time.
Yeah. They spend maybe 5 minutes with you.
So it's not all their fault, but
no, but it's still, if you're in the business of helping, if you're in the business of helping people, wouldn't you want to learn how to be the most effective?
Yeah, it's like with blood sugar, for example. They say, okay, allopathic medicine. Okay, when you're 120, you're diabetic.
Yeah.
What happens when you're 119?
Exactly.
And it's proven, for example, that the retina with blindness in diabetes and neuropathy, it starts already at 110.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little careless, I think, to have these high readings. It's a lot of readings that they have too high, in functional medicine it's low.
No, that actually reminds me, because when I used to work in addiction recovery, I don't remember what I was being tested for, something. And I went and spoke with the nurse because I still didn't feel well. And I told her what the numbers were. And she's like, and I said, are you sure I'm okay? Because it's right next to the cutoff. It's right there. And she's like, it's not in there, so you're fine. I'm thinking, no, I'm not. If I was fine, I would feel fine.
Exactly. And that's I think a big problem, and it
is absolutely
dangerous. It's dangerous.
So a lot of people know that they should, for example, eat more vegetables and things like that. But what are some other things that people should do to improve their health that they don't necessarily think about that you run across?
Well, what I can see is what they eat and maybe should not. For example, we take the craze now about making smoothies. And some people, they put like a bunch of spinach. They would never eat spinach that much if it wasn't smushed down in a smoothie. Spinach, kale, and then they don't feel good because so many people are allergic to the oxalates. And the same with, for example, especially the autism community, where they say, okay, don't give them wheat because wheat causes temper tantrums and so-called behavior problems. It's not behavior problem, it's a reaction, an allergic reaction. But so then they start to give them everything almond milk, almond flour, baking, and they have reactions because they are allergic to the oxalates. So there are so many things. If people could learn how to make how to do muscle testing on themselves.
Yeah.
And they could try to check what makes them feel good and what makes them feel not so good.
So where would somebody learn how to muscle test themselves?
On my website, there are other things on YouTube too, but I have also on my website, there is a couple of videos with information on muscle testing. Otherwise, YouTube have also. So because there is so many different things you can do with muscle testing.
There is. I found out some interesting things about myself doing it. So, so you mentioned that you do this over Zoom or over the phone. Is it just because it's an energy work that you can do that?
Energy doesn't have limits.
Yes, it does not have limits. No, I wanted you to say something to that effect because you're the expert. No, it's amazing how a lot of people cut themselves off from modalities because they are not familiar with it, or it's not what we consider normal here. But in other parts of the world, it's completely normal, or in different communities, it's completely normal.
Yes.
No, I love that. So I noticed too with a lot of people, they suffer from sleep issues, and we need to sleep. That's important. I don't care, the old saying, I'll sleep when I die. Well, you'll die sooner if you don't sleep, and if you don't sleep well. What are some typical things that people might run into that are causing that? If it might be food, or what are your thoughts?
Well, it could be a lot of things. Stress is one thing. Stress, by the way, also makes the blood sugar go up. Lack of sleep makes the blood sugar go up. I mean, it affects all the hormones anyway. And I think people, they watch TV or they are on the computer until they go to bed, and they don't really pay attention to when they are tired either. I recommend, and I do it myself, around 8 o'clock, I just wash myself, do everything I have to do. And then about an hour before I normally go to sleep, I read or meditate or something else. And as soon as I start to yawn, I go to bed. And then I fall asleep immediately. If I try to go over half an hour, because we have our cycles of about 90 minutes. So if you start to yawn at 10 o'clock, say, and say, no, I have this to do, and then you go to bed at 11:15, well, you don't fall asleep, and then you have to wait till the next cycle is finished.
That I didn't know. That makes so much more sense to me, where I'll be really tired and ignore it, and then all of a sudden I'm awake again, and I don't understand why.
Well, that's why.
That's amazing.
And also, I think everybody could learn. I have done it all my life, so I never used an alarm clock. Just before I hit my head, I say, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock or 5:30 or 6:15, what I have planned for the next day. And I always wake up at exactly that time.
I heard somewhere that by pressing the snooze button, for example, that it will disrupt the brain pattern for at least a couple hours afterwards, after you wake up. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about that. I only know that everybody who wakes up with an alarm, they're tired.
Yeah. No, it's true. And the one thing I've never understood about the alarm and hitting snooze is, if you're tired, why are you doing this again to yourself? Why are you causing yourself to go through this process again that you didn't want to go through the first time?
And every time you fall back to sleep, you feel more tired.
Exactly.
So no, I think if they could just use the brain to wake up instead of using you can of course have the alarm on, but then decide, okay, I'm going to wake up 2 minutes before it sounds.
Yeah, exactly. Just to make sure.
Waking up with an alarm, because I have slept sometimes with somebody who has an alarm, you share a room or something with somebody, and that is horrible.
I'm going to try that. I don't think I've tried that in a really long time, but I have been waking up about 5 minutes before I normally get up anyway. So I must be getting used to my schedule.
It's a mindset.
Yes. So we only have about 4 minutes left, but I do want to ask a question. And, it has to do with brain fog. I know that a lot of allergies and things like that cause the brain fog. But a lot of people don't really understand what that is. Could you explain what it means to say that you have brain fog?
It's that your memory is not functioning properly. You forget things. You can't really think clearly. Mm-hmm. Like if you can't focus on things come into your head. And sugar does that. Candy does that. And of course, a lot of allergies too.
And wouldn't lack of enough calories also cause something like that?
Yeah, I don't know anybody who doesn't do enough.
Oh, you're lucky. I know a lot of people who try and starve themselves in order to lose weight.
Yeah. Yeah, that is also the misconception about fat and not eating fat, of course. And that is totally wrong.
Yes. And there's this big debate about good fats and if there is such a thing. What are your thoughts? I mean, obviously something like bacon fat is not the same as, I don't know, coconut oil, for example.
Yeah, I live on coconut oil and butter and olive oil.
So with butter, there's the casein. So do you?
Well, I treat myself with the allergy kits.
There you go. I love that so much. So I do want to mention, hold on one second. Put up this comment just for you. I do want to also put up how people can reach out to you, because I want to make sure that you are a wealth of knowledge and willing to help people. So they can email you at info@theallergykit.com. Yes. And also theallergykit.com is your website. It's not 100%, but it's getting there. I love that. Is there any final words that you would love to share with the audience?
Yes. Start to eat organic and stop drinking sodas and eating sugar and wheat.
I love that so much. And real quick, how much water should somebody drink in a day?
Well, it is. I suppose it is different for everybody, but I think the recommended is half your weight in ounces. And what I do recommend, and what I do myself, take a glass of water. When you go to the bathroom, you come out, you drink another glass of water as a reminder.
Interesting. I like that philosophy. No, that's amazing. And then the other thing too, real quick, is that isn't there a lot of water in foods? I mean, if you're eating vegetables and, fruit and things like that.
Yes, it is. But
awesome. All right. So let me pop this up one last time, because I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to get to know you and work with you. It has been such a pleasure to have you on the show today. I really appreciate you joining us. And yeah, I want to have you back. If you'll come back, that would be amazing. We could talk a little bit more about your life, because that's pretty fascinating and inspiring as well.
Thank you. I'd be happy to be back.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. We'll see you again soon then.
Thank you.
I didn't even want to say goodbye. What an amazing woman. That was just mind-blowing. I learned so many nuggets of wisdom that I am going to use myself and with my own clients as well. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we will be back on Thursday. So until then, have a great night.